All right. Hello, everybody. Joshua Hatton here with ImpEx Beverages. We seem to have an issue going live here to Facebook, but hopefully we'll get that fixed. Let's see if that works. All right. So hopefully people on Facebook can see me now. So again, Joshua Hatton here with ImpEx. Really excited to do this sort of mid-year ImpEx Distillery deep dive, and this is sort of a different approach for us. We've invited 4 of our suppliers here of single malts. Not all are Scottish, but all are single malts. And we've invited a number of people here with some tasting packs as well. So I know some of you will be hopping on, enjoying some drams along with us. I'll start introducing our guests just in a bit, but first I wanted to bring on my co-hosts and bring on Mr. Sam Filmus and Mr. Chris Uhde. Hello, gents.
Hello, Joshua.
How are you?
Fine. Hello, Mr. Rudy. How are you?
Hiya. I'm good. I'm trying to get on the Facebook video so I can mute it and make a lot of comments, hopefully, to everybody about how delicious all the whiskey is.
We seem to have an issue with Facebook here, and I don't know what the problem is.
They switched all their talent over to Threads, and so they let the video thing slip.
Joshua, it's nice to see you after your vacation. You look rested. You got a new haircut and a new glasses.
I did. I lowered my ears. I get tired. Listen, I'm about to hit 50, Sam, and I figured I've reached the age where I can have as many ridiculous haircuts as I want. And so this is just, number 2 in ridiculous haircuts.
I'm just waiting for you guys, for your hair to turn into this. I just can't wait till this moment comes. There you go.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
So we can probably poke at each other all night, but there's 4 guests in our waiting room right now who are up quite late. So I want to bring them on. We can start talking about their brands, and also I realize we're having some issues with Facebook. The live feed is not going through. I'm not sure quite why, but as we go through, I'll try to fix it. So anybody watching YouTube, tell your friends who are trying to watch on Facebook to come over on YouTube and enjoy the party until we get that Facebook thing sorted. So I'm going to invite people in order in which they will be presenting, but here we go. First, we have the wonderful Jenny Karlsson from Ardnamurchan Distillery. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I like your hair too. It looks lovely.
Thank you. I think it's more the background that makes the hair look good.
Yeah,
Jenny, you got some competition. We loved your hair. Now you got some competition.
Oh, yes.
And glasses too. Looks like he's trying to copy you. You copycat you, Mr. Hatton. You're not going to
call me Joshua Karlsson for nothing.
There you go.
I'm hitting 50 soon too, Joshua. I think we'll get there together. I'm fine. Glasses and curly hair, although mine is straight now.
Right. I'm gonna, I realize everybody's going to be presenting separately, details on your distillery and the pours that we're going to be enjoying. Mm-hmm. But I'm looking at the other 3 in our waiting room, and I hate for them to be just languishing there. So they can. I'm going to bring them in so that, and we're going alphabetically here. So we go from A to F, and now we've got David Thompson with Filey Bay. Hey, David.
Hi, guys. How you doing?
Hey, Dave.
All right.
Good.
Are things in Yorkshire at 1:05 a.m.? All good?
Absolutely. It's always good in Yorkshire.
Well, we appreciate you coming on and staying up late and talking with us on this evening or morning or however you want to call it.
Absolute pleasure. I'm actually feeling old now because you guys are 50, so we won't go there, eh, Sam?
That's right. It's good to be young, David. It's good to be young, for sure. It all depends how much of Filey Bay you drink a day, but it's okay. It's a different theme of conversation.
I'm going to bring on another young person here. We've got the wonderful John Campbell of Lochlea Distillery. Hey, John.
Hi, Joshua. Hi, Sam. Hi, Chris.
Hey, John.
Hi, Jenny, and hi, David.
Hi, guys.
Well done. Morning.
Yeah, good morning. Really good to have you on here. And I'm excited to hear about Lochlea straight from you. It was, it was nice visiting you for years at Lefroy, and when you came over to Lochlea, and last year the entire ImpEx team was at the distillery to visit and to learn from you. It's nice to know the man hasn't changed, just where he is, and the whiskey hasn't changed. The flavor may have, but they're both delicious. So I'm excited for you to tell us about Lochlea, what you guys are doing there, and explaining your dram of the night as well. And then finally, Mr. Mark Westmorland. How are you, Mark?
Hello, morning, folks. Enough of the haircut comments, please. For obvious reasons. And we'll just leave the age to the side as well. Let's just talk about the whiskey and ImpEx beverages and all our distilleries. I'm happy doing that, but
age doesn't matter.
No, it's experience, Jenny. Of course it is. It's
Yeah.
experience. That's what I said, and that's what we're here for. Obviously, here to impart some of that experience to the masses. So looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see a glass of whiskey in your hand, not the gun, because I know you're former cop. So
Yeah,
you're good.
we shoot shots now.
Much.
Shots, nothing else.
Cheers.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
cheers. All right. Well, let's get started, Jenny. It's interesting. Your whiskey is the only one that's got a little bit of peat in it, and from a palate standpoint, we thought, geez, maybe Ardnamurchan should go last, but we're going alphabetically here. So Ardnamurchan comes first, and so I'd love for you to tell us about the whiskey that we have in our glasses, Ardnamurchan AD, and go over some of the history of the distillery and what you all are doing there.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you so much for having us on. And delighted to hear you've got AD, Ardnamurchan Core, in your glasses. So our distillery, I suppose we're all from young distilleries in this conversation here tonight. We started distilling in 2014. The parent company is called Adelphi, which is an independent bottler that has been operating for coming up to 30 years now. And we built the distillery on the west coast of Scotland, the most furthest west point of mainland Britain. And it's almost easier to get somewhere like Isle of Mull or Isla than to get to us. It's a very small, windy road out to the distillery, or actually out to the point that is the lighthouse, Ardnamurchan Lighthouse. And Sam and Chris have visited us out there, so they have experienced that road, and it is quite an experience. It's something that I had never had before I started working there. So the way that that came about is our two of our directors have land and property out there, and it made sense to start building something on their land, and the water was perfect. So we built a distillery and launched our first single malt whiskey in the middle of a global pandemic, which is probably something a few of us have done again. It's quite nice to be in a conversation where we're all coming from the same, very similar startup, I suppose. In our opinion, we felt that the pandemic from launching a product was actually behind our screens in the Zoom world, if you like, worked really well. It meant we can be everywhere in the world at any time of the day. This actually reminds me of the pandemic days where we were sitting up and doing Zoom calls in South Africa, Canada, Italy. It was all over the world, different times of the day and night. But it worked really well. We got really great feedback, and the first whiskey came out September 2020, and we've not stopped since then. the whiskey really represents the profile of our core, the one that you're drinking, the AD. It really represents the area we're in. You've mentioned that there is a high hint of peat in there. Alex Bruce, our managing director, had the incredible sort of, he's quite an experienced man in the whiskey industry. And when we started building the distillery, there was always going to be that flexibility in terms of what flavors we can create at the time of the blending of our whiskey. So the fact that we decided to do peated whiskey from very early days, it was 2015 when we started distilling peated whiskey. 2014 was only unpeated malt, but in 2015 we started distilling peated spirits as well. So we had that luxury of flexibility of different types of spirits when we were blending. The flavor profile was always going to be that rugged West Coast, pebbles on the beach. I mean, you don't go to the beach and lick pebbles, but you got that mineralic, that salty air, and you get that with the Ardnamurchan and the finish. But as you're introducing yourself to the whiskey in the glass, it starts off quite gently with an orchard fruit. We wanted a fruity element in there as well. So it goes from that, the orchard fruit to through the toasted marshmallows and then into the pebble beach, as you say, or the oyster shells. And just a gentle, really gentle sea breeze of, this is West Coast. We all that work at the distillery are big whiskey fans of especially that West Coast Scotland. We're big into the Campbell region and all the islands, and we're seeking inspiration from our favorite drams, in all honesty. And I'm part of the blending team. There's 5 of us, so it's Alex Bruce, our managing director, and Connell Mackenzie, who's our sales director. Then it's Graham and Antonia, who are on our sales team, and me. And the way we do it is by nose, and it works really well. We all have to agree on what we're producing, and so far it's we have been in agreement. And ask questions if you like.
Well, it's you touched on it before, that sort of like minerality going on, that slightly salty coastal style. I've tasted it in both your peated and unpeated spirit, and so usually when I think of that kind of like ocean sea breeze, I think, okay, well that's got to be peat, right? That's where that's coming from. But that doesn't seem to be the case with West Coast producers. And so I'm sure you've heard this question 100 times, but where do you think that that's coming from?
Yeah, we have. And I mean, how do you prove it? It's kind of all to do with the magic of the area you're in, without being too airy fairy, if you like. It is funny because there is that argument when our whiskey is matured on site. We are right on that hillside of volcanic rock exposed to the Atlantic Ocean. That's where we're maturing our whiskey. Does that have an effect on it? We have never matured our whiskey anywhere else, so you would have to figure it out, I suppose. If we had matured it next to the M8, maybe we could find out if there's a difference. M8 is the motorway between Glasgow and Edinburgh. But we very much feel like that plays a role in our in who we are, in the products that we produce. The same with the water we use. The water is our own water source, that's from the hills above the distillery. Yeah, we very much feel that element of minerals come from our raw materials and where we are. But the science to how we prove that, do we want that? I think it's there to be enjoyed, and if you find it and you connect with it, then brilliant. That brings you to the area, and that's what we want. We just want to promote that sort of West Coast, real, genuine, good dram, a genuinely like honest good dram, one that you would want to try again and just savor, and we all love it, and
it's one of those whiskeys that just that pulls you back. Sometimes the whiskey is great because you can drink it and it's mindless. And
Yeah.
you know, so it becomes an accompaniment to the conversation. But then sometimes, and I don't think this will be the first time that I'm saying this tonight, sometimes the whiskey says, no, hold on a second, there's something important happening here. And you kind of, you're pulled back in.
Well, absolutely. We will make whiskey that we want to have another dram of. This is the one thing. Like, do I want to have another one? Yes, we're happy with that. But we do. So we want the whiskey to do the talking, obviously, and promote who we are. But we've embraced technology as well. So the bottle contains a QR code which tells you every bit of information that you possibly could want on that batch of whiskey, if you like. So this is something that this is how I ended up working for us, actually, having worked in whiskey for 20 years next year. I kind of felt like I had done everything. I've been in sales. I've not worked in production, even though I studied brewing and distilling. I never actually worked in production, but I felt like I knew a lot about Scotch whiskey. And then along comes Alex Bruce and says, I have this project. Would you be interested? And I'm like, yeah, always love working with you. So let's see what it is. And he told me it was QR codes, and I had to learn. I had to just drop everything. I thought I knew a lot. I didn't. And I dropped everything and relearn the new way of, I suppose, reaching consumers and people that are buying new whiskies. And how do we talk to them when we can't? We're not for printing leaflets, or we actually don't print boxes anymore. We just sell you whiskey in a glass bottle, and that glass bottle is a really highly recyclable material bottle. We're always having to make decisions that are centered around sustainability, but also circular economy of the distillery. But just that, the fact that we needed to communicate with people, the QR code fits that really well. You scan it, it tells you what bottle number you have, how many bottles were in the batch, and then everything you want to know. I mean, it is ridiculous. And we still get asked more questions. So the more you give people, the more they want. So there is a fine balance. But we enjoy the curiosity of our whiskey drinkers anyway, and because we're similar minded.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, I've got a cat and it's just made a noise. I'm sorry.
See, that's why I closed my office door, because I'd have 4 cats coming in.
Oh, okay. Sorry, rookie mistake.
So I'm going to start looking at some of the comments to see if there are some questions here. But Sam or Chris, I'd definitely love to open it to you both to see if you had any questions for Jenny.
Do the QR codes ever break?
Pardon?
Do the QR codes, like, is it hard to maintain? Like, do you have to?
Oh God, I mean, it is hard to maintain. It is technology at the end of the day, and it's only as good as the people that work with it. But also, no, it's not. It's hard. We're actually working with a really good company right now that has, touch wood, it's been working well for the last year. So we've turned a corner. This was something that, I mean, we're not going to be talking maybe so much about innovation right now, but this is something that Alex embraces. Innovation. He's such a curious mind. If we can implement it and we can use it to make things easier for our consumers, for the people that drink our whiskey, for the you know, and for our partners in crime, like ImpEx, who sell our whiskey, it's easy for your customers to understand our products as well when they can get all the information from the code. So it was always something he wanted to have there. He'd been to a meeting about a farm that could what is it, from farm to fork, I think it is, and it was to do with providing meat to the supermarket and the traceability, and you could trace back the batches, and he could see a use for this in whiskey. And so far we're just getting the new production tool, which is the people that are making our whiskey. So all the guys at the distillery are now using it, and instead of pen and paper, they're actually started using a pad where they can enter all the information. And in 5 years' time, this core will have all of their data in it. At the moment, we can still link it to the blockchain that way, but there is a manual step that I have to take because the information was not entered via technology. It was actually done via spreadsheet. So that's the only thing right now. But in a few years' time, it's all going to be smoothless and it's going to go fine. But yeah, there are issues with it. It takes a lot of time. It does take up a lot of my time. But do you know what? The feedback we get on it is worth it, 100%.
That's super cool. Thanks.
Even when it doesn't work, but people make contact, and I love that because I can say, gosh, I'm so glad you scanned it. Thanks for letting me know it didn't work, but I'll fix it. But it's just really nice to see people are using it and are curious that way, because we are like that. And that's how I would want to enjoy my whiskies as well, finding more information about it. Of course, whiskey is important. That's why we're drinking it. The flavor is the first, but also having that tool to communicate with our people. It's good.
Jenny, got a question for you.
Hey,
so Ardnamurchan and Adelphi and now McLean's Nose are coming under one same umbrella. And I walked into the warehouse today and I've seen a few pallets that just came from your company, and each box would have this density, man. And even the breadth of aisles had that image. Can you just, in a short version, tell us why it is so important for you to have this dancing man on this box?
Why do we have the dancing man? I'm glad you asked me to do it. Say it short. So the dancing man is William Gladstone, who was Prime Minister of Britain 4 or 5 times. I wish I was better at history. Alex is the historian in our company. But he was the one that, when he liked whiskey, he basically demolished the tax on whiskey maturation in warehouses. So before, you had to pay tax on the spirit that you put in the casks, which, if you fill a cask, then that's white spirit, not on the spirit that you took out later on. So he demolished the tax and changed it. So you were only taxed on the stuff that you were drinking, not the stuff that was the angel's shares, if you like. So he was an important part in the history of whiskey in terms of taxes, which is not very sexy, let's be honest. And he had this very impressive nose. There was a statue of him in Edinburgh, and it makes me smile now because William Gladstone is such a big part of our who we are, actually, the logo and everything, the dancing man. And so we're turning 30. Adelphi's turning 30 this year, and we're working with this logo and how we can change a few things around it just to talk about the history of the company a little bit more. And so, yeah.
This is great. Thanks, Jenny.
You're welcome.
We got a question that came in chat from Whiskey Fellow, or Jeff Schwartz, aka Whiskey Fellow. It'd be weird if it was Whiskey Fellow, aka Jeff Schwartz. Anyway, he was curious to know what the ppm is on your whiskey, and I think that invites the question: make your final bottling as well.
Yeah, you cut out a little bit there, but you were asking for the ppm of the core, and it's interesting because I'm not aware. Maybe a few more distilleries are starting this now, but all these lab tests we have to do with our spirits when we're exporting whiskey, they're quite costly and they take a lot of time. But not a lot of companies test their whiskey for parts per million phenols as a finished product in the cask. What I know is that companies test their malt, and they specify what type of ppm they want on their malt for making their whiskey. They might even test their new make spirit, but very few companies test the actual whiskey. So I can't tell you for exact how much it is, but I do know we're using 30 parts per million phenols ppm for our malts when we're doing the peated malts at the distillery. So then we're taking half of that and half of the unpeated. So the actual ppm in the whiskey can be, I might be guessing 10 or 12 ppms. Could even be a little bit less. I'm sorry, but around about there. So it's that gentle sort of embrace of smoke and peat rather as the punch in your face.
So you do a punch in the face.
Yeah.
A gentle breeze. So you mentioned you marry your peated and your unpeated spirit in the end, and it's sort of a 50-50 mix of that. What's the overall ratio of cask types in your AD bottling? And feel free to say, check the QR code.
Come on, Joshua, scan it. Get your phone out, scan it. No, I can tell you because because it's what we're always striving for, a certain recipe now when it comes to the core. That's something that we know works. So 50-50 peated and peated. 35% roundabout there will be sherry matured, and the sort of 65% are bourbon matured. So it's kind of bourbon led, but pretty. That you've got the fruity elements as well from the sherry maturation too. We have a couple of limited releases that comes out. For example, the cask strength that came out, that was very, very much bourbon led. It was 95% bourbon and 95% peated. We were playing with that as we were blending this core. We always knew there was a recipe in there for you know, almost like our core with muscles, like a real sort of young, vibrant, you know, cool whiskey. And so we had a limited release of the cask strength, which is that version, but you know, with muscles.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, question came in, and this question I think I actually may want to direct towards Sam potentially from Thomas Fowler. He's asking about the AD Ardnamurchan Sherry matured release.
Sure, Thomas. Great question. We actually broadcast number 632, I believe it was a peated Ardnamurchan matured in a Oloroso sherry hogshead. If you are able to find it and you are in retail, that would be the one for you to. We love that fight between peat and sherry, and it was just a great thing for us. We did bring the ImpEx collection cask, which is the same peated, distilled, and sherry matured. So if you have troubles finding the distillery release cask, you might want to look into finding this one. They both are great.
That's great. Cheers. All right. Well, we've got just a couple minutes left before we start talking with David about Filey Bay, Spirit of Yorkshire, and the flagship. But if there's a last comment you want to leave our viewers and fellow sippers about Ardnamurchan or Ardnamurchan AD, what would it be, Jenna?
Because I'm holding back because I'm sharing the floor with everybody here, but I could talk about our whiskey until the cows come home, basically. They really is, I mean, we were quite, you know, it's quite a funny story. We were lucky at the time we were launching with you guys in America because the laws had recently changed to you could have a 70 cl bottle. That was something that really aided the smaller distilleries because it's not easy to finance bulk buying in these days and age. You know, you have to have the storage space and you have to buy enough to make it worth it. So for the fact that we could do 70 CLs coming into America it was a great celebration in our office. Yeah, I can't. I don't know. There's so many things I want to say, but look, we're delighted that we are available in so many states, and we have my glorious colleagues, Carl Craft and Conal Mackenzie, are going to be in America the first 2 weeks in September, and they have some pretty cool things coming out with them. And I think if you get a chance to go to any of their tastings, and then do so. But if you don't, if you're living in elsewhere, then just hook up with us on social media. Let us know when you visit us. We're always around and to show you around at the distillery as well. It is an experience and it's worth visiting, I'd say.
Beauty. There's actually one last question before we've got about a minute before we go over to David. Any plans to release 100% unpeated, an unpeated that's 100% sherry cask matured?
Oh gosh, that's a brilliant question. No, in all honesty, there is no plans for that right now. But we're a small company, which means we have flexibility, curiosity. If we want to try something, one blending, we set aside blending days, 4 blending days a year, and we've just recently tried an unpeated something, and we all agreed that it wasn't the thing to release. We weren't happy with it. It wasn't something we wanted to drink again. So we just said, look, that's not working. Let's try it the next year again. So it has to work. So we're not going to release something just because it is different or sounds something. Yeah. It needs to work. We want to drink it. So if we can find that, we will. I mean, there are some incredibly cool single casks Ardnamurchan around the world now. I'm not just talking about America. And so we know that unpeated West Coast spirit that we make, that does sit really nice in the Spinola casks and in the in these amazing sherry casks. We've worked with such beautiful suppliers, and I'm very lucky. Again, we visited Jerez last year. I was in Champagne this year because we do the Champagne casks, Yes, the pull under my champagne cask is completely unpeated because that's the only thing that works for us. So it has to work. If it works, it'll be out on the shelves, I promise. If we want to drink it, it'll be out and we'll share it with you.
I can add to this a little bit because I think it's our fault that you don't have any unpeated sherry casks, because we took the one that we thought was great and offered it to beanies at an exclusive level, exclusive.
Yeah.
So, but I think it was not mature. That was finished. I need to double check. So, Brian,
It was matured.
you're familiar with it. Was matured. Okay, thanks, Jane.
Yeah, I picked it. I was there. That was me.
Thank you.
So I remember that cask. It's fantastic. So there you go. There is like a single cask occasionally that just comes out and it fits perfect.
And Brian, you're familiar with beanies, so reserve your bottle or two when it comes.
All right. Well, thanks again, Jenny. I hope you'll stick around and for the conversation. I also know it's very early for you, but I do hope you will stick around with us still.
You will.
David, Mr. Thompson, I'm about to put a little Filey Bay in my glass right now. A little bit of the flagship, which we're tasting tonight. So, if you and I got to spend a few days here in Northeast U.S., and so I know your story, and I know how well you could tell it. So I'm hoping you could do the same.
That's setting me up to fail, isn't it, Joshua? I'd just like to say that was amazing, Jenny, and there is actually a connection because I was up there on the Ardnamurchan Peninsula on my bike with my wife hanging off the back of a Ducati, and we did that every single road on the peninsula. So I know how beautiful it is, and we were amazed about your whiskey as well. It's just a great setup. So that was a fantastic visit. So I really enjoyed that.
I know Antonia looked after you, and it was great. Thanks for coming. We're coming to visit you next.
No, you must. Yeah, I'm glad it was Antonia cooking and not Alex actually. But anyway, So there is great connection between all of us actually, and we've got a lot of similarities. But the story of Spirit of Yorkshire and Filey Bay is really friendships. I started in the agricultural industry. Way back in the sort of late 80s, and I was actually working with my co-founder Tom Mellor, who was my first customer actually. I used to buy all his barley off him and sell it into the trade, and when I say buy the barley off him, he's a farmer, so he has 650 acres of some of the best malting barley growing land probably in the country actually. The Yorkshire Wolds are superb for growing some superb malting barleys, I used to trade that barley for him. So my background is very much to do with the crop and growing the barley, and the conversation started because Tom was trying to find a way of using the raw materials on his farm, the malting barley and also the water, which is straight from a well on the farm, to add value, to underpin the farm income, I guess. So 20 years ago he set up a brewery, and we've been making beers for the last 20 odd years. And the conversation started really in 2014 when he said, look, we're making beer. Clearly the first part of making a good whiskey is making a very good beer, or wash, we call it in the industry. And we've already got that infrastructure and skill. We've got the farm feeding it. So why don't we look at making whiskey? So the conversation continued, and the problem we had, we just didn't know how to do it. So we needed the skills of a professional, and we came across Jim Swan, which is a name that's sort of gone round the industry as probably one of the best brains and scientists behind whiskey. He's been responsible for Milk and Honey, which you guys represent also in the States, and Campbell from Taiwan. So there's some actually fantastic distilleries that he's been involved with, including a lot of Scottish distilleries as well. So we got him on board, and effectively there was 3 of us working in the distillery from 2016. So we actually learned to distill ourselves. So literally we made everything for the first year, just Tom and myself. no other employees, just learning the craft. And the remit really to Jim was we wanted something very light, very fruity, very ester-led, because we felt we enjoyed that sort of whiskey. We also wanted to make a whiskey that was accessible to not just the people that loved single malts, but actually people who perhaps hadn't tried it before. So that was really what we asked Jim to come up with, and we crafted that spirit over sort of the following sort of 14 to 16 months, which was a massive learning curve because we're obviously not from the industry, but that now underpins everything we do with our sort of the liquid you're just about to taste. If you haven't already, guys, we probably made ourselves. So, you know, it's a great sort of story, hands-on story. And the important thing is we can trace that liquid all the way back to the field we actually farmed the barley in, which I think in this day and age, in terms of traceability and knowing where your food's come from, is so important. And the other thing we've done, we've been able to embrace new farming techniques, but actually they're old farming techniques where we're actually stopping tilling the ground now. We're stopping ploughing the land. Because if you plough the land, you're releasing carbon to the atmosphere, a huge amount of carbon to the atmosphere. So by reducing that, we're actually keeping the carbon where it should be, and we're also planting cover crops in between the barley crops to sequester more carbon back into the land as well. So that is something you can do as farmers, and I believe there is a big disconnect between the farming industry and the whiskey industry, and hopefully we bridge some of that gap.
Yeah, sure. It's been, you know, visiting you guys back in September. It was great seeing the care that you took for the land, and you explained it. You know, you came from an ag background, an agriculture background first, and so you've got to treat the land well, and it will treat you well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if we do nothing else, Joshua, you know, we won't have many harvests left. That's the point we're at. You know, we've got to look after that soil. I think you guys call it dirt, but we have to look after that raw material that actually, if we don't have barley, we don't have whiskey, we don't have a lot of things. So, you know, we've got to seriously look after that structure, that soil, and we're doing a lot of things at the farm to do that now.
Yeah. Can we shift gears just really quickly? I'd love to go back to farming, but as I'm tasting through this whiskey, there's certain flavors that are coming through that I don't find in many whiskeys. Conflicting things. There's a light fruitiness, but then this, you know, very heavy viscosity going on, and I think about how you distill, which is in a way that the Scots don't have the freedom to do. Your distillation setup, your whole kit is quite a bit different. Well, maybe not quite a bit, but a bit different than what we're used to in Scotland. Can you talk about how you're distilling, how you're producing this liquid?
Absolutely. And I guess it starts with the type of stills we have, and actually they're 4-size stills, so they are Scottish stills. But one of the things we wanted to do was produce a liquid or a spirit that was very light and fruit ester led. To do that, you need a lot of copper contact and a lot of reflux. And there's lots of ways of doing that. You know, you can build a very tall still, and you can have your line arm pointing slightly down, and you get more reflux. But we had a very actually short or small roof, so we couldn't go up. So what we actually did was we added in to the spirit cycle a very small 4-plate rectifying column. And what this has allowed us to do is get that. If your spirit or your vapor is working harder, it's getting lighter, it's getting fruitier, but also you can go too far with that, and you can actually rip out or take out all of the flavour. So it was a balance to get this absolutely right, and Jim worked with 4-size and worked with us to get that working in balance. So actually what we do, Joshua, is we distill with typical pot stills for 6 months of the year, and then for 6 months of the year we add in the additional 4-plate column. So we're quite unusual in the fact that we've got 2 styles of new make which are cast separately, And then we have options in the warehouse to bring those back together at different proportions. So, for example, the flagship you've got in front of you is predominantly the lighter, the fruitier side of the distillate, with the mouthfeel coming from, a proportion, probably 30% of the pot side. So you get a nice balance. You get that mouthfeel, as you quite rightly say, but you're also getting those lovely appley sort of citrus type, and obviously the vanilla's coming from the cask, but you're getting those citrus type flavours coming from actually the very light distillate.
There's an overall dryness to it as well. Is there anything in the distillation process that contributes to that slightly drier character?
Yeah, I mean, I refer to it as like a crisp type, fresh character, and it's difficult to pinpoint exactly what that is, but we definitely feel that the distillate that's gone through the extra column has that type of characteristic. So this will come out in flagship because that is the predominant spirit in flagship. And I think it's like anything. I mean, it is a science, but it's sort of an unpredictable science. So it's a trial and error thing, and quite often you hit the sweet spot when you're not expecting to. And we found that actually what we've started to do is run the column in the winter when it's a bit cooler, and actually that hits that sweet spot. So it is a trial and error thing, and it's not an exact science. I mean, all you guys will agree with this if you know how you guys distill, and we're open to the sort of elements. We're on the north coast or sort of east coast, but North Yorkshire. So we're getting those sort of breezes in the warehouse as well. We're getting that sort of cool climate, just like on the west coast of Scotland. And I think that adds also something to the character of the spirit from our distillery.
Yeah, beauty. Chris, did you have a question?
I did. But you might have answered it when you started talking about doing the column in the winter months. Do you change your fermentation at all between using the refractor and no refractor, or is it just is it the same base and then just the only tweaks are in the distillation?
Yeah. We see the making of the wash and the fermentation as the canvas. So we don't actually change a lot to do with the mash bills or fermentation. We keep that pretty much the same. And the way we sort of paint the whiskey, if you like, if we're referring to canvas, is through the way we distill and the way we mature. So we try and keep one constant. Now that's not to say in the future we may experiment with the mash bill or the way we ferment or the yeast we use. But for the first 7 years, we've actually stuck to producing that canvas as pure as we can do, and let the other elements of distillation and maturation paint the picture, if you like.
I have one follow-up. 650-acre farm, what's the coolest thing you found on it? Walking around.
Do you seriously want to know? We found
I would be out there with a metal detector every day.
We found a Roman coin, which was probably one of only 5 in the country ever found. So that was quite special. So it was a gold coin, so that was quite special. And we also got something called a dew pond, which is nobody really knows how it fills up. There's no source of water going into it, but it's always wet and it's always damp and it never dries out. So that's pretty cool as well.
Thanks, man. I like that type of stuff.
Sam, you had a question?
Sure, maybe a little bit of a comment and a question. David, we absolutely loved the distillery visit. Every part of it, brewery, agricultural part, and the field. Of course, your warehouse, tasting the whiskey from there. Your crew is absolutely phenomenal. My best part of it was that leg when we went to the Filey Bay itself.
Yeah.
Was one complaint. We got a full bottle of Filey Bay flagship going there. On the way back, it was empty. But also that gets to my question. We've seen a lot of birds, gannets, I believe.
Yeah,
if
that's
I'm not,
right.
And what is so significant about you making it a part of your branding? Kind of the bottle has those birds, the box has the birds, etc.
Absolutely. I mean, Filey Bay, we are sitting on Filey Bay, so you can see the whole of Filey Bay from the distillery. It's a fantastic sort of 7-mile stretch of sand, and at one end of it, we've got these huge 400-foot chalk cliffs. And actually, the chalk cliffs is the land that actually runs underneath our farm. It just happens to come out into the sea at that point. And on those chalk cliffs, we've got the biggest colony of gannets, which is an absolutely beautiful bird. If not in the UK, I think probably in Europe. So it represented everything we do at the distillery, really. It's a beautiful bird, it's sort of very majestic. I always say it's full of spirit as well, which I guess we are too. But it's a lovely sort of character, and it really represents the distillery really, really well. So that's why we used it, and you'll see it on the bottle, you see it on the packaging, and it's very much a part of our branding, yeah. It's a bit like the dancing man, I guess, but a bird.
See, when these guys go so geeky about the production, about the additional steel and etc., I'm just going easy. But thank you, it was great.
No problem.
We got a question on YouTube from Johnny Baldry. Actually, I'll put it up. There we go.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the beer, and I mean, basically, we are brewers and distillers. Every distillery is a brewer and a distiller. So the skills of making that wash absolutely underpin the character of the spirit. Clearly, there are different processes. We're not adding flavour through boiling hops into the wash or the beer. But fundamentally, that drawing off of the sugars and making sure they're getting all that flavour coming out of the barley and out of the malt is a skill. And we've had 20 years of doing that. So although we had the skill set there, we obviously had to learn the skill set in terms of distillation. But certainly the skill and the history behind the brewery and the farm underpins everything we do. So it definitely has an effect on the end spirit for Filey Bay, for sure.
Well, it had an effect on my overall outlook the day I was at the brewery drinking some of your beers, because they were damn fine beers.
Thank you. Yeah, we enjoy them too.
And just so I have it correctly, you're saying you designed the stills in the way that you designed them because your roof or your ceiling wasn't tall enough. Yeah. What would your stills have looked like if you had a taller ceiling?
Well, the simple answer is taller. But yeah, I mean, basically, you need that copper contact, and as much copper contact as possible. So the taller your still, effectively, you're getting that. And there are examples in Scotland where you've actually got small rectifying columns sitting on top of stills. I think Lochlea's one, and there's a couple of other examples of that. It just happens that ours can't fit on top, so we put it to the side. And actually on our packaging you can see like a line diagram of exactly where it sits. And it's probably more controllable because we can turn it on and turn it off. Whereas if it's on top of the still, it's on all the time. So yeah, that was definitely an experiment. But Jim Swan said to us, "Look, I've never done this before. I'm super excited about it. I want to see what the end result's going to be. On paper, it should work fantastically, and actually in practice, it worked pretty well. So we were very, very happy with the results of adding something. We call it the Yorkshire twist. It's something slightly different, but clearly we respect the traditional way of making whiskey through traditional pot stills as well. So
the Yorkshire twist is totally different than the Glasgow kiss. That's one thing.
You don't want one of them.
Last question for you before we hand it off to John Campbell with Lochlea is, it's not the same question I asked Jenny. I'm going to switch it up a little bit. What's the thing you love about your whiskeys the most? What's the characteristic that has you coming back to your own whiskeys?
I would say it's so approachable. it's something that if you're really not into whiskey and you really want to try it and get going with whiskey for the first time, then definitely Flagship, the one you've got in your hands now, is a fantastic starting place. But it's not a simple whiskey as well. It's quite complex. There's quite a lot of nuances with it. So I think we've ticked a couple of boxes there, and it's a difficult thing to get right. You know, it's definitely not peated. There's no peaty element to it as well, and we've definitely led with those lovely light fruity esters, and I think that's the thing that really attracts people back to it time and time again. I actually refer to it, and I shouldn't do this, as a breakfast whiskey. I don't mean that literally. I just mean that actually, you know, it's an all-day whiskey. It's one that you can approach all the time.
That's when we bring up this, you know, please drink the whole bottle responsibly.
Absolutely.
Banner.
Yeah, I said not do it literally, guys. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Responsibly. All right. Yeah, cheers. Well, thanks again, David. And as with Jenny, I hope you'll stick around and join us through to the end. I'm sure there may be some questions that come up as we get to the Q&A session at the end. But John, welcome to the conversation. It's nice having you. I've pre-poured some Lochlea, some R barley, and I think the first chance I may have had it, or the first time I may have had it, was at the distillery. Maybe it was a prototype, or was about to be bottled. Maybe I have the timing wrong, but it was one that
I think it was a pre-production, Joshua.
It was a pre-production one, yeah.
Getting the recipe set because it was just its first birthday yesterday, actually. So,
all right.
I think we had kind of got it set, but we hadn't really. We had just released it, maybe. So yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, good morning, good evening,
Yeah.
wherever you are. I don't know where I am actually, but I'm happy to be here. And yeah, so Lochlea is a farm distillery as well. So there are lots of like common themes through just as David said, through the 4 whiskies you're going to be tasting tonight. We are based in Ayrshire, which is kind of south of Scotland, kind of probably about halfway to the border with England, and so probably about 45 minutes south of the biggest city, Glasgow. And it's in kind of valleys, I guess, the southern Scotland. So I stay in one valley and kind of go to work in the next. So it's quite rolling hills, kind of green, kind of fertile land as well. So good. There's a lot of, I guess, kind of cattle farms and dairy farms as well. So that's how you would probably describe Ayrshire. And then if you go to the coast, golf. And so that would be Ayrshire. And so Lochlea is at the top of one of these valleys. And so basically there's a funnel right down to the coast in a place called Prestwick. And so not as big as David's farm, 222 acres at Lochlea, and pretty much all of the fields will be used for growing barley, hence the name of the whiskey you've got in your glass, because 100% of our barley is grown on the farm. We still have, that'll produce about 600 tonnes of barley per year, and that'll give us about 480 tonnes of malted barley.
Okay.
So we haven't used all the fields yet. We've still got 4 to go, but one of them is probably not going to get used because that's where the loch is, hence the name, and we are at the side of the loch, so that's what Lochlea means. It started off as a cattle farm as well, Lochlea, and then 2014, which seems to be a date so far as well. Neil and Jen, the owners, decided they had done enough of this cattle farming Lark, it was a lot of work and not much reward. And then they went into cereal production as well. And that really kind of changed everything forever at Lochlea. A year later, he decided that he was selling the cereal to the people that were making single malt Scotch whisky, and he thought, okay, I'll try out and experiment myself. So he did that. It worked out well, and then decided he was going to build his own distillery. And in 2018, August 2018, which is just about our 5th birthday now, Lochlea started producing whisky. And so I guess what's different about Lochlea, just kind of there's again similar themes. It's independent, it's family owned, it's kind of in Ayrshire. What would its character be? I believe we're liquid led at Lochlea. We're kind of open, we're honest, friendly. If we are describing its character, it's hard working. And it's fun. It's always going to be fun. And similar to David, the kind of remit when I started at Lochlea was they want a whisky that can be enjoyed by everyone, that they shouldn't feel kind of guilty about, or like it's too kind of precious. They want people to open the bottle, pull the cork out, and just like enjoy kind of social times. So that's I guess the feeling of the character. And so when we went about creating the liquids, and this is kind of what I guess the feeling that the owners wanted the liquid to have, and so that's hopefully what we get in our barley as well. So. I guess some of the kind of technical stuff is that Lochlea, we will produce the barley. We'll store the barley on the site as well. We won't malt on the site yet. We've done a couple of periods of floor maltings since I've been there. Torn rotator cuff due to that because of it this year, but yeah, getting old's not easy. So yeah, but normally it will go to just south of Edinburgh, which seems a long way away from Ayrshire, but it's actually not because Scotland's so small. But we'll send it over there to a company called Beverages. They'll malt it for us, and then we'll take it back to the distillery. And we've got storage bins for just nearly 2 lorry loads of malt, because it is very, very small production-wise at Lochlea. We'll do about 10 tonnes of malted barley a week, which is about a third of a trailer load. And we'll do 2 5-ton mashes. So we basically work Monday to Friday, and we work 8 to 4. So it's kind of office hours at Lochlea just now. So it's not going fast. And each of the 2-ton mashes, I guess the purpose of them is to try and get a clear wort. So we are looking for just these fruit flavours David's talking about. We're looking for kind of high ester production as well. Well then, the water for Lochlea is similar to David as well. It's a borehole on the site. And thanks, Charles. Yep. It was well done as well. It's really still sore. The water's there. We then have Douglas fir washbacks. So we've got wooden washbacks at Lochlea. We'll take about 10,000 litres of wash or wort off a mash. And then after either 64 or 112 hours, we have 2 lengths fermentation. And basically, because we don't work Saturday, Sunday, we have the 2. Yeah. We've got 3 longs and 2 shorts, so they get the 48 hours extra, and that they will add slightly different flavours as well. 64s, you'll get a lot of really a lot of fruit coming through in them, and you get more kind of grassy cereal kind of malty notes coming through in the 112s. And then we have 2 copper pot stills. The whole of the ferment goes in, so 10,000 litres into the first distillation. Again, distilled really, really slowly, and this is something that I guess learnt at Lefroy as well, when I worked there, that like the slower the distillation, the more you keep the fruit flavour right at the beginning as well. So we distill even slower than say Lefroy, which is pretty slow for the industry as well. Just trying to keep that kind of copper contact ester production high. A couple of reasons for that. You get the catalysation, which is needed so that we can get all the kind of oxidization and good flavours in the maturation. And then you get these sulfites as well, which will, when the liquid gets older, we're only 5, but when in another 10 years' time, you'll start to get these nice tropical fruit flavours coming through in the liquid. So we're working for now, just like we all add, but we're also planning ahead flavour-wise as well. So again, and this just happens as we all do as well. So we'll then fill the casks on site, and the 3 main casks will be in our barley. It will be first fill bourbon, there'll be Oloroso sherry, and it will be some STR coming through in there as well. We do other styles of cask as well, and we're doing a lot of experimentation in the background. So we are trying all sorts of different stuff. But they'll be matured on site as well. We have 3 warehouses on site, and I guess just like Jenny said earlier, we haven't matured anything anywhere else. So we know that it's probably different, but we don't know just how much it's different. I do kind of understand that from previous work at Lefroy as well. So I know kind of if you matured in Ireland, if you matured, say, in the central belt of Scotland, you did get different whiskies. So I understand it'll make a difference, because even climate, I guess west to east coast in Scotland can be very different. Even like the 2 valleys I'm in. So I stay in the Clyde Valley in Glasgow, and I work in the Ayrshire Valley. So even leaving work and you go over the Fenwick Moor and into the Ayrshire Valley, you can have completely different days. And it's only 40 miles away, 30 miles away, 40 miles, somewhere between that. So it's not far, and you can have little different pockets of weather, so they will affect the maturation as well. And we probably will try somewhere different at some point in the future, just to try and understand that as well, because it is a question we do get asked: what difference does it make growing your barley in Ayrshire and maturing in Ayrshire? And it's just, sorry for gazumping there, Joshua, but it's something we know that will make a difference. We just don't know how much, I guess, right now. So we will get all the bottlings prepared on site as well. We will bottle off site, and then we'll take it back to the site, and we do all our distribution from Lochlea as well. So the kind of new warehouse is kind of distribution centre, kind of warehouse. It's a kind of, and just probably like every small business, it's a wee bit of everything, just like we all are. When you're working one of these businesses, you're really like a Swiss Army knife. You've got a wee bit of everything going on kind of all the time. So I think that's kind of one of the fun elements of working in a small kind of family run business, that you from day to day, from hour to hour, things can change, and that's kind of, it's probably one of the exciting bits, I guess, of working in a small business. But yeah, I'm rattling on here.
No,
we're not drinking. So.
But well, trust me, I'm drinking. But you know, you talk about these subtleties, these changes in climates, even 40 miles away, that can affect maturation, that can affect flavors and things like that. And as you were talking about your barley, a number of people had asked, Charles Smith, Donna Andrews, and there was another person on here basically asking about the barley and I'll add on to their questions. Is it true you're using Laureate as your main barley type? B, are you growing multiple types, and do you plan on working with multiple types? And then C, as someone who has to manage the consistency of that final product, how do you balance all of these subtle differences to ensure you've got some degree of consistency year over year?
A, yes, it is Laureate. B, no, not yet. I'm trying to keep nailing the rails, but we are going to do stuff like that, because I think even and this probably adds to C, actually, there are so many variables in each of parts of the process. So even the barley. So we talk about barley now. We're in a valley, so we've got south-facing fields. You've got north-facing. You've got kind of some that they all get different amounts of sunshine, different amounts of kind of rain, just different. Even so, I think when it's harvested, different amount of moisture in the barley. So that's all going to make it taste slightly different, I would have thought. So I think you could even go by field, and it would be different, even with the same barley. So we haven't done it yet. It would be cool to do some stuff like that. Again, just to see, for understanding, and maybe just do a special run, kind of like we do with the seasons just now. We just do small runs of kind of limited liquid, just to throw stuff out there that we think's quite interesting. But then see, you're basically trying to understand these to build the depth. So it's just I think as Jenny and David have said, it's build the depth and build the liquid profile is really what we're trying to do. And I guess as we understand ourselves more and more, because we are really at the beginning of hopefully a very, 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 very long journey, that we'll start to understand ourselves more and more, and then build these layers and the depth of character more and more and more as we do so. And that's kind of really so we want to understand them all, I guess, B, and to build these layers for C, because we always want to keep improving the who we are and kind of what we are, I guess.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Cheers. So we've got just about a minute before we switch gears and we talk to Mark Westmorland. Sorry, I want to make sure I'm pronouncing your last name. You said it in a certain way, and I'll have you correct me once we bring you on. But Johnny Balderay came up with my final question. The whole time I was trying to think of a question for you, and I was coming up flat. But Johnny's got a good one. Here we go. For those who don't enjoy whiskey neat, which Lochlea expression is your favorite to include in cocktails?
You don't need to apologise either. It would probably be our barley. I think it's the most kind of malleable of the liquids that we've produced. We do kind of have a signature serve along with our barley as well, and it's really simple. It's kind of like a highball with just some kind of honey, salt, and kind of carbonation as well. So I think that one, it's probably the most, well, it's not the most robust, it is the most kind of one that will hold its own, I think, the easiest, and barley as well. in a cocktail. So, but not kind of overpower. Some of the other ones we have released could, like, I guess the harvests, the summer ones, the port ones wouldn't be good so much in a cocktail. Ploughing might be, it's the peated one. Now I'll go out barley. It'll offer the most in a cocktail, I feel. Like, go out barley, and yeah, I could think of two.
I think you've got some homework to do. I think you just need to try them all. Just
always
cocktail
trying, Josh. Always trying my hardest. Like a home study, yeah.
I'm trying to be cognizant of time and people who are watching. So I'm going to stick to our format here. We're going to switch gears and talk with Mark from Wolfburn, but at the end we'll have a bit of Q&A. Some other questions have come in that I want to try to get to once we're done. But Mark, please, A, I need to pour some Wolfburn, but B, I need to hear about Wolfburn from you. You know, Wolfburn, I mean, if I'm being honest, everyone here are distilleries that I've been following from the early days. Isn't that kind of cool to say? You know,
Great.
200 years ago, I don't think people were saying, oof, you know, I remember when Lagavulin was built. You know, it's like people didn't have necessarily that feel that they wanted to follow a distillery's evolution or call it like their brand or their distillery. And so
yeah,
it's kind of nice to be able to do this. And you know, you're celebrating 10 years. You're going to be releasing a 10-year-old. You've done it in the UK. It's coming in the US a little later this year. So there you go. So let's hear about Wolfburn, and let's hear about Northland as well, which is the whiskey we're pouring tonight.
Yeah, superb. Thanks for the invite, Josh, and to Sam and Chris and everybody at ImpEx as well. There's an advantage going last, I suppose, on one of these gigs, because I've got notes in front of me and I'm slowly ticking off everything what everybody else has said before about their production, about their copper contact, about their ester lead, about the fruity, floral, sea, maritime brininess. So it's really, really good in that respect. But then I was getting a wee bit worried, thinking, well, everybody said everything already about the makeup of the whiskies and the spirit profiles. But that's the beauty of the whiskey industry. You know, I describe it as a wheel sometimes. The wheel runs no matter which distillery you go to. But some people just change the hub. Some people just change the tire. Some people will change the spokes. And it's just those little nuances that gives us our, again, fruity, floral, light, vibrant spirit at Wolfburn. We're the most northerly town on the British mainland. So you've got the most westerly, you've got the most northerly town. So you're slowly going around the geography points, everybody at ImpEx, just to get the map of Scotland covered. But Thurso was an old Viking settlement. So we are quite proud of our warrior spirit as well. You know, we say at Wolfburn, fortune favours the brave. You know, our guys, they're ex-Royal Marines, ex-military men. We decided to build the distillery after the original Wolfburn started in 1821, named after the original water source. And luckily for them, there was a new industrial estate getting built. So they bought a couple of plots of land. They approached Forsyths of Rothes. Richard had just taken over the company, and he had in his mind a pair of stills that he had always wanted to build, but nobody ever wanted them because they weren't, I suppose, described as commercially viable. They weren't big. They weren't going to be producing millions and millions of litres every year. But in conjunction with ourselves, we decided to go with Richard's stills, his dream stills. And that was a great buy-in for us, because not only did we buy the stills from Richard, but his team, all the subsidiary companies at Forsyths, they built our distillery within 4 months, from the end of sort of summer 2012 to winter 2012. And our first spirit was produced on the 25th of January 2013. So yeah, 10 years ago. And I think Lochlea released the spirit on the 25th of January as well, because that's a significant date in Scotland. You know, that's Burns Night. when everybody with an inch of Scottishness about them want to stick on the plaid and the tartan and have a party and drink whiskey, sing songs, and just have a right old hoo-ha and make a memory, you know, and that's what it's all about. Whiskey is just the glue that binds us together, I think. It's just an excuse to get together. But yeah, we're fiercely independent, and that's not a political statement. That's just the fact that, again, we're not part of any big whiskey factory. No disrespect to anybody else, not in here, certainly. But for us, it's about the quality and not quantity of product that we produce. We only produce about 125,000 litres a year, storing everything in traditional dunnage on site, bottling it on site as well. So it means that we are in supreme control over the product. You know, we don't let the product go unless it's done all the checks, and we're quite happy with that as well. After all, this is our expressions are our babies. You know, we want to see them grow, we want to nurture them, we want to protect them, and then we want to fire them out to the world for world domination. Full Bond villain, you know. That's what we want. That's the accolade that we want. But the DNA of Wolfburn, the essence of Wolfburn, is that light, fruity, vibrant, floral spirit that we make. And how do we do that? Long fermentation, gentle distillation, as it's been said, a lot of copper contact. Our spirit still's got an extra big onion, a big bulb in it as well, just for that purpose, get a lot of reflux. And the Northland is a great, it was our very first expression, actually. It came out in 2016, so just over 3 years old. It was originally called Handcrafted, but we certainly realised after that really everything that we do at Wolfburn's handcrafted, artisanal, bespoke. I use, again, some of the analogy that if you go to IKEA, if you want a piece of furniture that works, you buy it, you build it yourself, it's functional. But then if you want something that wee bit more special, you go to a carpenter. They choose the wood, they look at the space in your house, they build something through their years and years of knowledge. And this is what we're trying to do at Wolfburn with our spirit as well. My job's getting the liquid to the lips, and it's great to see that folk have got the packs in front of them and they're getting to taste our first ever release, really, that came out in 2016. It's non-peated. We do peated whiskey as well, only to 10 ppm. But this has got a little more sort of depth on it because this is matured in ex-Isla quarter casks. So although it's a non-peated spirit, we've matured it in peated casks. So the smokiness or the slight wisp of smoke or a burnt match smell that I get sometimes from it is just through the maturation. It's got that lovely. I was just trying to think of the best sort of analogy to describe it to maybe an American audience. I maybe say honey nut Cheerios in a glass. You know, like David mentioned, a breakfast whiskey. But again, when people in the industry mention the name sort of breakfast, it's like it's just an approachable whiskey. It's just a whiskey that you can pick up in a glass, you can swirl it around, and just as you say yourself, Joshua, it's adding to the conversation. But then suddenly it gives you a wave, and you have to focus what's in the glass as well. So there's a lot of sort of grapes and honey. There's that wee bit peaty smokiness to it. It's got a little bit of salinity as well, a wee bit of brininess. Thursow's on the coast, and because our traditional dunnage warehouses, Caithness, the county, is flat as a pancake, so the sea air sort of howls in from the Pentland Firth, and that's the body of water between the north of Scotland and the Orkney Islands as well. So we'll get that hopefully through maturation as well. Everybody wants their uniqueness of the location to impart on their spirit, and in our DNA and our essence, you know, again, we want our outside environment to actually help to do that as well.
Earlier on, when we were talking with Jenny, we were discussing this idea of a West Coast style, which had that sort of that flinty minerality thing going on, which is it's almost hard to describe, and so you just simply say West Coast, and then you're like, okay, there's my shortcut, right? When I think of Highland distilleries, the distilleries that come to mind, some of the bigger names like Glenmorangie, a little smaller like Balblair or even Glenglassaugh, having been reopened in 2008, and here we are 2023. They all have this sort of lighter, fruitier style.
Yeah.
And so is that when building Wolfburn, now I understand, you went with Richard Forsyth's sort of dream stills, but was that what you guys wanted to go after from the get-go? Did you want to stay true to that Highland style, or what I'm currently calling a Highland style? Feel free to disagree with me on what that is. And was that the goal?
No, I don't think it was the goal. I think the original goal was to make a spirit of our own, to make a spirit of our own product, that uniqueness of spirit. We were lucky. We had the distiller come up from Glenfarclas. He jumped ship. He came to us. He was given 2 tasks: make a spirit of your own choosing, but make a spirit that we can sell relatively young, because we didn't do gin, we didn't do vodka, we didn't do rum. The clue's in the title. We're a whiskey distillery, okay? That was it. We had to produce something relatively fast or relatively quick to get the coffers rolling back into the company. And the Northland, just over 3 years old, we went for ex-Isla quarter casks because the intensity of the maturation as well, the more sort of spirit to wood ratio contact, and not only the intensity, but the faster maturation. So when this came out as the handcrafted, it blew everybody away, because it was a 3-year-old whiskey in 2016 that basically put us under the microscope, and we're still probably under that microscope as well, because people came to the brand because of the Northland, and they're following our evolution. And that's been said again on the chat tonight. It's about, yes, whiskey making is about consistency. It's about getting your production correct, and then it's following it to the T every single day, every single week, every single month and year in life to get your new make spirit the way that you want it. But you have to innovate. You have to, you have to keep people on the hook. You have to do different cask maturations. You have to keep people excited as well. And certainly we're doing that at Wolfburn. The fact that we're maturing bourbon, sherry, port, we've done some Madeira cask finishes, we've done some Caribbean rum casks as well. You'll always hear about our successes, I'm sure, but you'll never hear about anything else that goes horribly wrong. Touch wood. I'm at a wood table here, so you can hear myself touching the table. Nothing has gone wrong, because again, we keep our standards to an exceptional level. But that's the exciting part. The exciting part of making whiskey is the weight. Is this going to be up to our standard? If it's not going to hit the stores. It's not going to hit the shops. But what we want to create, because we're creating a great spirit, we want a great vehicle to market, and we want to partner with great people with passion like yourselves that will bang the drum for us and for everybody in your portfolio, which is it's like a hand in glove. It's really a great fit for us as well to come to ImpEx this year as well, because we know your success. We know what you do with other distilleries. I've been following you on social media for years, and I see the opportunities as well. And obviously, as the global brand ambassador and sort of UK sales manager for me, any chance to get stateside and shout out to the masses in the audience about Wolfburn, I'll be there. So just send me the invite and I'll come willingly. I can assure you. Yeah, we're having a great time. We're just taking our time. We're quite humble, and you're not going to see us on the sides of buses or in glossy magazines. You're not going to have me at the front of an audience firing Wolfburn t-shirts out of a cannon. People might want that. They might enjoy that. I would probably love that as well. I could probably take somebody out in the audience that I probably have given me a hard question before, but no, we want to have a bit of fun. We want to have a bit of fun, but we want to create the best juice available, the best liquid, and my job, as I said, is getting the liquid to the lips. You can be judge, jury, and if so, you have to be executioner as well. But I've got awfully broad shoulders and a strong chin, so I'll take it back to the distillery if you don't like it. Tell me you don't like it, but tell me why, and then we can sort of rejig, or we can look, or we can do a wee bit of reflection, because that's very, very important as a distillery as well. It's about listening to your consumer base, and it's about planning years and years into the future as well. So, yeah.
Well, I was about to pay you a compliment on this whiskey, but I wasn't sure how to word the compliment until I read this comment, and the note is almost the same that I'm getting. This is from Gabrielle Cerna. Getting a hint of chocolate brownies tasting the Wolfburn. There's a chocolate note coming through. I usually associate that with a bit of sherry cask maturation, maybe
well.
Madeira, some sort of wine. What's happening?
I think it's that sort of doughy sort of mixture, that sort of flour and sweetness to it as well. That cereal note, I think, where that comes from, in my opinion. But it's great. You know, everybody has their own palate, have their own experiences, and you know, sometimes at tastings, I don't really like telling people what I taste, because it's just planting the seed, and you're just trying to get everything back from the audience, what they feel. Some people are quite comfortable telling us. Some people are quite happy with a smile on their face, nudging each other and making little childlike sounds when they're drinking the whiskey. You know, you can hear the ooh, ah, ee, and all the wee giggles and gurgles that they do, because we know that they're enjoying it, and that's enough for us. That's what we're in the business. Yes, we've got to make money, but let's do it in a way that people are going to enjoy it. But I think somebody did say earlier on about it's about, you know, that accessibility, and that accessibility become with a taste that people can consume and not be frightened, or it's not too aggressive, or it's not too harsh. You know, it's not like the hot poker going down the throat. It's more like a tear rolling down the cheek. You know, a lovely descent, a nice warming feeling in the belly, and sometimes you can feel where the heat goes. Yes, it's going to put a smile on your face, but let's do it in a way that people can enjoy it, and they can justify putting their hand in their pocket and buying a bottle without thinking about the price as well, because that just messes with your melon. It really does.
I saw Sam had a question, and Chris, it looked like your mic was going on and off too, so I wanted to open up to you both.
I just saw some comments and questions. Number one, all 4 brands that we're talking about today are available in Florida. I think it was from Thomas Fowler. So, and you see our email address there, so you can contact us, and we'll connect you with the local rep, and we'll make sure that you get a hold of a bottle you're looking for. Travis, thank you for your kind words, your compliments. We appreciate that. You're a big supporter of ImpEx brands, and we love you too. Mark, I see a sea wolf right behind you. Can you, you know, there we go. Even then, can you give us a little bit of a spiel on this, so we know why it is so important for you to have it as a branding?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Sam. We wanted something that would relate to where we are. So Thurso, being the most northerly town on the British mainland, we're a coastal town, and we draw our water from that lovely, natural, very mineral rich as well. Again, there's a thread coming through here about our water sources, and so a very mineral rich spring that rises in the moors and flows down to the sea, and our water source being the Wolfburn. So you've got the sea and you've got the burn. So you've got the sea wolf coming from the Wolfburn and the sea where we are. So the sea wolf. Now this is a mythical beast that liveth on land and sea. It's not Harry Potter. It's not Game of Thrones. Although it was used, Wolfburn was used as the House of Stark whiskey in a pop-up pub in Edinburgh a few years ago, because it looked like the dire wolf. But the sea wolf relates to the sea where we are and the Wolfburn where we draw the water from. And there's another sub-story here as well. Our owners, ex-Royal Marines, ex-military men, you know, the whole distillery is run like a military operation, which is great. Everything's, you know, ship-shape, Bristol fashion. Everything has its place. But the Royal Marines as well around the world are called the Sea Wolves because they fight on land and sea. So there's an immense pride by our owners in that respect, that they want to put their own stamp on various parts of the distillery. So although we are the sea and the wolf relating to the coastal and the water source, there's a wee sub-story as well. And the great thing about this, the sea wolf, Sam, as well, as you know, it's very eye-catching, it's quite unusual. And again, us humans, we're very nosy animals. We want to find out about things. Where, you know, that's where the internet's great. You can do the deep dive and you can go down the rabbit hole as well. But when you see the wolf or the sea wolf here, it sort of brings people towards the brand because they've never seen it before. So they become curious. And that's a hook. You know, I dig the hole, I cover it with branches and leaves, and I just watch folk fall into my trap, especially at shows and festivals, you know. But be courageous and be adventurous. You know, come to a brand that you've never heard before, and then you might find some diamonds in the dust. That's what I always say to folk.
What a story. And Aaron Krause, sorry, you're going to be jealous, but Mark is coming to California, but Northern California in September. So no LA this time, but come to Northern California. We'll spend some time together. And Pam, as always, we love you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks for your question.
Mark, thanks so much for telling us about Wolfburn and allowing me to enjoy a little bit while we learn. We've now hit the Q&A session, but I realized before we went on to talk with you, Mark, that there was a question I think that Sam had for John, and I wanted to address that first. And then there's a few questions here in the chat for everybody, so we'd like to get to that as well.
John, I'm today on the branding side, but for you, it's going to be a little bit of a geeky question. When we were at the distillery, and I remember this trip that we went to the field, and we all of a sudden found a bottle of Lochlea, our barley, hidden among the bushes, and we were so happy to find it and enjoy it. But you mentioned, and we all know how important it is, the wood program for the whiskey. And you mentioned at that time that for our barley, the portion of Oloroso sherry cask is around 17%. I hope I'm not giving out any secrets, and I hope no one out of master distillers are listening to that. But since I already, let the cat out of the box, why is it so significant for you to have this specific number when it comes to sherry cask maturation?
Yeah, no, it's, well, we're just going to have to share that secret now then, Sam. I'm kidding. It's an old blend. So I was taught this by a guy called Robert Hicks, who was the master blender for kind of Ballantines, whiskey, stuff like that for about 35, 40 years. And basically it's called a flavour bomb. So if you put like 17 to 18% of a liquid into another liquid, it'll feel more than that. So the flavour explodes basically inside the liquid is the way it's. So even though there's like in our barley it's 17.4, I think is the exact number. Just so everyone knows that that's the flavour bomb in Lochlea. So it'll feel more than that in it. I
saw Joshua writing 17.4, so expect some competition there. He's going to copy what Lochlea. Thanks, John.
No problem.
So we've got some questions that came in. Let me see. I'm going to start with the bottom one here, and then we'll move up to ones that came in a little earlier. And this is for all four of you. And I'll just go down the line. Maybe we'll start with Jenny. Which expression from the other guests brands intrigue or inspire you? You don't have to come up with three. You can, just grab one of them. Is there any that inspire you, Jenny?
Oh gosh, this is put us on a spot there. Why don't you? How am I supposed to pick? This is like picking one of my favorite children. I love them all. No, it is. I have tried them all, and I have enjoyed them all, and I have loved listening to the guys explaining the backstories and how their whiskey, these specific whiskies came about. No, I'm genuinely, I'm a whiskey fan geek myself. I enjoy all of their whiskies. So I'm not going to pick one. That would be so mean. I would happily gift either one of these bottles to friends, whiskey drinkers. I'm really I'm really tickled with Filey because first of all, I know Jenny now. I think she's great. She's got a brilliant name, but also she's a great girl. I know David, and I just have been in industry for a while now, and I can remember thinking, "Oh, English whiskey, like what's that all about?" But you know what? It's all about that now. It's great. I really love what they're doing, and I've been lucky enough to try some single cask samples as well, so I can see what you were talking about, the different styles there earlier, and it was really interesting. So, but look, I'm a big fan of John through the years as well, and I love his stuff. And our barley was the one I remember from our tour in America last year that that stood out for me from your range. And Mark, I've not met you in person, I don't think, and but I was in know of you through because our industry is so small. But I've not tried this one that you're drinking today, but I can't remember. It's terrible which one it was, but it was really great. Like I love that part of Scotland where you are, so it's all about that. Yes, sorry.
Cheers. No, I realize this puts you on the spot a little bit, so I'm gonna. But you know what? I love putting people on the spot. So,
Yeah.
David, it's your turn to pick a. Are you gonna pick a favorite, or are you gonna? Are you gonna pick a favorite child?
Jenny was so diplomatic. It is incredibly difficult. But when I was up at Ardnamurchan and sitting with Antonia and going through your cabinet of whiskies, which I don't think we should have done, but we did. Absolutely superb single casks, and there's even a few Adelphis in there as well. So I'm really sorry, but we did drink a lot. But I just love the character and the spirit. I think it's absolutely superb. I really love what John's doing and the team at Lochlea as well, because obviously the roots of all whiskey starts with growing the barley. So I think we've got a huge amount in common. Our barley, I think, is very, very similar to our flagship, and I think the purity of that spirit is sensational. It's really, really nice. And I have to be honest, I really haven't tried Wolfburn. So there's the challenge, Mark. I need to dig you out at a show somewhere, and we need to go through the range, and then hopefully I'll have an answer for Wolfburn as well. But I love everything the other guys are doing, so it's fantastic.
Can I just call out to say that I think David's only saying that for an excuse to take his Ducati up to Thurso?
There you got it. Yeah, absolutely.
He's saving the seeds for his next road trip.
The long journey.
Yeah, I'm on my way.
And speaking of Ducati, there was a comment about the Ducati.
Yeah.
Here we go. On a Ducati, you show off.
Well, you've got to, if you've got a Ducati, you show off. I mean, you've got to do. It's an Italian stallion. Come on, guys.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Campbell, if you were to choose a favorite child, if you were to choose a dram that intrigues you or inspires you from your friends here, what might that be?
Yeah, I'd probably go Mark at Westmorland.
Oh, yes. Get in, Long.
Probably go, and I guess the reason being the quarter cask. So I've worked with them as well.
There you go.
they can be a real pain in the ass. So like, it's when you get it right, they're good. But yeah, I guess that's the reason why.
Cheers. I love that. To the point. Wolfburn, quarter cask. I get it. Mark, what about you?
I'll take the 5th on this. No, I've had great opportunities to taste all the spirits at various shows and festivals, because the great thing about being like the global brand ambassador, it's like swapsies. Like, well, what have you got new, or what can I taste, or at the end of the day, sometimes it's like, I've got a quarter bottle left. What have you got? And we'll do some swapsies. So my cabinet is full of little exchanges as well. A favourite, it depends what mood you're in, depends what you want from a whiskey. It depends, who you're with. I've tasted some great whiskies in the house when I've been happy. I've tasted the same whiskies when I've been at the bottom as well, and they taste totally different. So it just depends on how you open yourself up to the spirit as well. So that's what I would say, and that's what I would encourage everybody to do out there as well. Although you might taste the spirit one day and you might not like it, don't strike it off your list. In a happier mood or a different setting, that spirit will talk to you. But you've just got to be open and honest with the spirit. It's not just us being open and honest with our production, our integrity. It's about, giving folk a try. Give folk a chance. Give the spirit a chance. We'll get you in the end. We'll get our teeth into you. Don't worry.
Sounds like a Beatles song, all we were saying. So a quick one here from Travis Williams, and this one, I guess I'll put it in both David and John's court here about terroir. And if you're planting crops between harvests, are you concerned how it may influence future barley harvests?
Okay, I'll go first. Since you're in mute, David. No, the purpose of the cover crops at Lochlea is to keep the soil in the Ayrshire it's got quite a lot of clay in it. So the purpose of the cover crop is to keep it all separate, because it does get a wee bit damp in Scotland, in the West Coast during the winter. So the cover crops, we do barley, beetroot and mustard seed, and they basically open up the soil and let the air in there and let the rain get down and soak away. So that's the purpose. It keeps the soil fluffy. Is the easiest way of saying it. So that's cover crop purpose for us.
Okay, so that allows you to protect yourselves against that. Okay, got it. Cheers. And David?
I'm going to be confrontational here. We as farmers, and 4 generations of farmers, if you think about what we go through to make a bottle of whiskey, growing the barley is only one element of it. How much of that flavour actually gets into the barley and then ends up in a cask? After you've fermented it, you've used different yeast, you do different fermentation times, sometimes different mash bills, different distilling rates, different temperatures, different casks. We've gone through a massive process which all add character and flavour to the end product. The barley for us is a sugar source. Do we actually get flavour from that barley through the growing process? And I think that's the big question. I think a lot of people have used it very cleverly as a marketing tool, but in practice, we don't believe that actually the terroir for something that's in the ground for 5 months actually has a massive influence on flavour. If it's a grape vine that's been in for 100 years, completely get it. And it is a grape thing it's coming from, a wine thing it's coming from. But as farmers, we seriously do not believe there's characters of flavour coming from the barley or the terroir the barley is grown in. Maturation definitely, distillation definitely, and fermentation definitely. So there you are. That's my
That
view
is
of life.
controversial. There you go. I like it though. You know, there's a whole bunch of questions here, but I want to be respectful of your time because it's already 1 billion o'clock where you all are. So what I want to do here, if the four of you don't mind, is there was one last question that I wanted to highlight here because it'll all give you an opportunity one last time to sort of talk about your process a bit, which I think is real important for people to understand because that it talks specifically to what they're drinking. And then there was a toast I wanted to make as well, and I hope you'll humor me there. But so this is a question from Store 3797. I don't think that's the person's birth name, but that's just a guess. How do you balance making something approachable, but also making it unique? And do you find them sometimes to be at odds? And why don't we go alphabetically again, Jenny? I'll start with you, if you don't mind.
Okay, that's a big, wide question right there, because when you talk about like this being approachable, are you talking about the flavor profile to be like something that you enjoy, or are you talking about is this person going to be able to afford that bottle of whiskey? Because there's a big element of cost of whiskey these days, and I think that's a whole other discussion there. But from our point of view, for it to be approachable, it needs to be the cost of the whiskey needs to be approachable. So, but we will never. The quality of our spirit will not suffer because we're saying we want to keep a certain cost. Well, we'll rather not have a box.
Sure.
We just have the bottle, if you know what I mean. We'll always make that work. But yeah, big question. And I feel from our point of view, we're always flavor led. It has to be the best in the bottle as it can be based on the recipes that we're using. And it needs to be affordable. And yeah, that's going to be my answer, I suppose. I hope that sort of touches on some of the points.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you so much. David, how about you? How do you, is it a balance? How are you approaching the making of it, and how do you balance it all?
Yeah, I think the word's nuances. I think, approachable in the way I think of approachable is a whiskey that's enjoyed by a lot of people and it's easy to get on with, but it can also be complex. And the nuances of a whiskey, the delicacies of the whiskey, shine through depending on how it's been made and how it's been matured. So you can balance the sort of the small nuances and the slight changes in an approachable whiskey. And the exciting thing is once you get to the maturation and the choice of cask, then you can really start to paint those colours. So yeah, it's an approachable whiskey in lots of different ways, but then you can really paint the colours with the cask types at the end. And we've got a warehouse full of probably 10 or 15 different types of cask, very excited different oaks as well. So yeah, I mean that's how you do it basically. But most of our whiskies, or all of our whiskies, are definitely approachable because of the base spirit is very delicate as well.
Yeah, sure.
Does that answer the question?
Sure. Cheers. Yeah, no, I think that's great, and you know, it's interesting as I was listening to you and thinking about bringing John up next. He's the gentleman who may have the largest number of years under his belt making whiskeys, and I wonder if I asked him the same question a few years back, I may have a different answer than I have now. So, you know, John, how do you view the creation of an approachable whiskey, but that's also unique?
Yeah, I think you can, and I think you can put. I'm going to go the other way. Unique. What's unique? Because unique could be like lots and lots of different flavors and like taking you on a journey, or unique could be one flavor and it just punches you in the face. So like what do you want to highlight? So you could highlight kind of anything in any spirit, because I guess, and that's the easiest way for me. Like, that's what I would have used to do with cartridges at Lefroy. You would try and highlight a flavour that is in Lefroy, but is not necessarily all Lefroy. So, like, that would be the way I would try and make it unique there. But there's so many ways to create, I guess, unique as well. So, approachable and unique. I think it would breaking it all down there. So, but there are so many different ways of doing things. So, I think I would go that way, because I think you can highlight one flavour as much as 15, and they're both unique.
Okay, so it allows your different releases to be unique within the range. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cheers. No, that's great. Thank you, Mark. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I'm going to be quite controversial as well. As traditional whiskey makers, we want to cast our net quite wide to sort of cover the masses of whiskey drinking public out there. So that's why in our maybe core expressions that we have a non-peated, a sherry oak, a lightly peated, and a cask strength. So that really does capture a lot of the whiskey drinking public. But we make our whiskey the way that we want to make our whiskey, and we're not going to please everybody, and we're quite happy at that. If you like our whiskey, great, come to the party. If you don't, tell us. We're not going to lose any sleep over it. So don't worry. As a distillery, as a producer, you're not going to please everybody. So you want your uniqueness to be your process, your selection, your expressions. We don't sell anything for any independent bottlings. We don't sell for blends. If you want a bottle of Wolfburn, you come to us. If you don't, you can jog on. You can go to somebody else. We're quite happy. We're quite happy to do that, because we've got a profound confidence in our spirit as well. And we understand that it's not going to be for everybody, but at least give us a chance. Let's get us the liquid to the lips, and then you can decide. But if you don't try it, you'll never know. So if you walk past the stand and you don't try their spirit, don't have an opinion on it until you do it.
There you go. There you go. I quite like that. Controversial, but pleasing. I dig it. Listen, it's getting late where you are. Sam or Chris, I don't know if there was any last words that you had. Obviously, we thank all four of you profusely for not just staying up late to talk with us. You're entrusting your brands with us, and it's something that we take quite seriously, and we take it to heart, and we thank you for that. Chris, Sam, was there anything you wanted to add?
I would just add that, thank you for your hard work. You've crossed over the threshold, given what time it is where you are, that you can now enjoy your breakfast whiskey without any type of guilt. Because it is almost time for breakfast.
Sam?
Joshua, I'm waiting for your toast. I'm thirsty.
Okay. So listen, this toast it's going to be a little bit from left field at first, but I think you'll understand where I'm getting at in just about 2 seconds. There was a gentleman just earlier this week who passed away, Paul McDonough from the Bon Accord, and all of us will have known him, will have shared a dram with him. Maybe he poured a beer for you. But an absolute titan in the industry, and a man gone far too soon, and someone who I felt was dear, and I'm sure was dear to many of you. You four are very dear to us, and so I hope you'll join us in just raising a glass to Paul McDonough from the Bon Accord. But listen, we also raise our glasses to you four as well.
Flange, stab some sounds.
Water.
Cheers.
All right. Well, to the viewers, thank you again so much for joining us. As we mentioned before, if there's any expressions that you may have heard about tonight, or you're just interested in some of the other expressions from these 4 distilleries, please reach out to us, office@impexbev.com. Where we take care of those requests immediately. So please do reach out to us. You know, if you had friends who were looking to join but couldn't make it tonight, please let them know. This video will stay on Facebook. It'll stay on YouTube, and or if you're one of the people who got a tasting pack and you weren't able to taste it tonight, but you can taste it and watch this again at a later date, well, please, it'll be up there on Facebook and YouTube. Sam, Chris, thank you so much for being my partners in crime on these distillery deep dives. I always appreciate it, and appreciate you letting me take the charge on these. And to Jenny, to David, to John, to Mark, enjoy your breakfast. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks for that.
Great.
Joshua, back at you, and want to thank for wonderful friends or guests of ours, and also people who attended today. Donna and Travis and Aaron and Gilo and Johnny and Charles and Brian. All these names are so dear to us. So thank you all for that. Cheers.
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 Cheers.